So guys, now please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. I'm audible, guys. Now please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Guys, now please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. I'm audible. Is my voice on screen is clear to all of you guys? Everybody, guys, now please check it. All of you get my voice on screen. Those are attending in online. Right, sir. So now check it what we completed in the last session. Just have given some introductory part for advanced Java. Then if we understand the total content of this advanced Java with the frameworks is a batch. And before that, regarding this advanced Java, I created a link for classroom notes. If any of you are new today, then we can take this link. I think it might be then Friday. I took the class there. I given that link details. If any of you are new today, we can take this link. Daily classroom notes you are able to get here. Okay. All right, sir. So this is okay, fine. Then in this classes here, we are going to understand. This is a batch for advanced Java with the frameworks where advanced Java, Hibernate, Spring Boot, microservices and web services. They are the content here we are going to understand. All right, sir. In advanced Java, what topics here we are going to understand? JDBC, servlets, JSPs, JSTL, and expression language. These are these technologies we are going to understand inside this advanced Java. All right, sir. So what databases we are going to use for our advanced Java classes, especially for JDBC content, Oracle and MySQL. Up to how much I required from Oracle and MySQL, I will discuss with you. After that only, we will prepare the JDBC programs. Remember it. So servers, Tomcat, WebLogic, Wildfly, and Glassfish. But WebLogic is a connection issues are going on at present. Maybe may not be possible to cover that content, but sure, Tomcat and Wildfly both we are going to provide. But anyway, out of these 4 servers, 1 server is okay. If you do that, then the remaining servers are almost the same. But max probably without, that means max except this WebLogic server, I'll cover all the remaining 3 servers as per our view. So Eclipse and IntelliJ IDEA, definitely we are going to see both programming and both the IDEs there. But if you want to start advanced Java, first we have to understand what prerequisite part. So how much you are aware in core Java, I don't know. So first of all, some few classes, that means few topics I must cover in core Java. Then only we are able to start what there advanced Java. See, classes, abstract classes and interfaces. I think all of you are aware about these concepts. Again, I'm telling there, if you are not aware about these 3 classes, no, then better to stop these advanced Java classes. Wait for some other new batch there. Then without knowing that fundamentals, class and abstract class and interface, no, not possible to understand the total advanced Java. At least if you know these 3 concepts, no, remaining concepts, I will give some clarity. But without having knowledge in classes, abstract class and interfaces, if you want to attend this advanced Java in the sense, it's a time waste process only. Next one is a static keyword. Up to this class.forName method and new instance method you already completed. I know that already you have knowledge on up to this part here. Leave this one, but at this point onwards I'm going to explain in our classes. All right, sir. Then exception handling related, throws keyword, try catch finally, try with resources. These 3 topics here we are going to understand. From this point onwards, I'll take the content now. Okay. All right, sir. Now observe carefully. After completion of these IO streams related content, after that collection framework, some list and array list, these concepts. Here we are going to see in our content. Right, sir? It's okay, fine. First of all, let us understand exception handling. Exception handling related concept. I'm not going to think about the total content of this exception handling. I don't require this total concept of exception handling. Just I required few points about this exception handling. Throws keyword, then what next one here? Try catch finally, and try with resources. Only these three things here are required. Right. For that purpose, we need to have some basic awareness on this exception handling. Now try to understand it clearly. First of all, tell me what is an exception. After that, we will go for what the exception handling and all the content. What is an exception? Direct definition I'm telling to you, all of you observe carefully. Everybody put more concentration. Exception is an unexpected event occurred at runtime of the applications. Up to now, just this is a part of the definition. Not the I have not given the total definition. Understand it. What is an exception? Now tell me. Exception is an unexpected event. Exception is not expected one. It is an unexpected one. Occurred at what time? Runtime of the applications. Remember, always exceptions are occurred at runtime only, not at compilation time. Occurred at runtime of the applications, which may be provided by the users while entering dynamic input to the Java applications. I'll explain, don't worry for it. Which may be provided by the database engine while executing SQL queries in the JDBC applications. Next one, which may be provided by the network, which may be provided by the network when we establish connection between local machine and remote machine in the distributed applications, and so on, causes abnormal termination to the applications. This I'm going to give 2 minutes of time to you. Try to read out this para. How much you are going to understand, try to understand. Later on I'll explain to you now. Try to understand statement by statement. Don't read out the statement immediately. Just read one statement, try to analyze it. Okay. All right. Now, point by point, I am going to explain to you. Try to understand it clearly. Everybody. First, understand the point here. Exception is an unexpected event occurred at the runtime of the applications. Again, I'm telling there. Up to now, as of now, understand it. Exception is a runtime error. Exception is what there? Runtime error. Means that It will occur at what time here? Runtime only. Alright. Examples of getting exceptions. Some cases I have included here. What cases I have included here? No. Case number 1, which may be provided by the users while entering dynamic input to the Java applications. Take this point now, which may be provided by the users while entering dynamic input to the Java applications. Right, I'll give clarity, try to understand it now. For example, I'm asking about user input data. I'm asking about like what there user input data. Right, sir. Now observe carefully. For example, I prepared a Java program. When I execute the Java program, it is asking user name value. And console, it is asking username. I entered something else like what there Durga. Up to that, no problem. User password, it is asking there. Of course, I entered Durga 123, something else. Okay, up to that, it's accepted, no problem. Next, user email ID is asking there. Okay, nice. Durga 123 @ something else like what that gmail.com that we provided. Valid, no problem. Next, user age. All right, now we need to enter, say for example 26 is a user age here, we entered. It's okay, clear. Username string data. In our program also we are going to read that Durga as a string data. User password, the data what we entered is also be taken as a string data. User email ID, still we are going to take it as what the string data, no problem. But when we enter that user age is 26 now, as per the application requirement, that user age value should be a numeric value. So in our application, we are going to take that value as an integer. That value we are going to take as what there? An integer. So definitely as an integer, we are going to take that 26 now. That's okay, fine. For example, when it is asking, when the program is asking user age value, if I enter some numeric value, okay, 26 is not like that. 150 still valid. -100 still valid, some integer value, okay, up to that acceptable. But if I enter ABC, what's the meaning of it now? In place of user age, if I enter ABC, what you are going to get? How we are going to represent the ABC in a numeric form? Is it possible to represent the ABC in a numeric form? Their JVM will raise an exception. That exception is number format exception. That exception is what there? Number format exception. There we are able to get an exception. Now tell me, which may be provided by the users while entering dynamic input to the Java program. Program is expecting integer value. In place of integer value, if we provide a string value, the string value is not convertible to integer. Because of that reason, there we are getting what there? Some exception. That is the case number 1. Isn't it? All of you are getting clarity on this point now. Can I move forward? This is, now tell me, this is happening at what time? At a compilation time or at runtime? At runtime of the program only this is happening. That's why that exception is what there? Runtime error. Providing ABC in place of numeric value is an error or not? This error is at what time here? No, runtime. That's why it is called as what there? Runtime error. Leave it. Second case, which may be provided by the database engine while executing SQL queries in JDBC applications. All of you understand the point now. Java program at one side, database is available at other side. This is JDBC. Communicating with the database from Java program is JDBC, not more than that. Interacting with the database from Java application is what there is a JDBC. Everybody put more concentration. In JDBC, what I am going to do now, okay, before that one more point. To execute Java programs, what is required? Who will execute our Java programs now? Tell me. JVM. JVM will execute what there? Java program. Similarly, at the database side, Oracle database is available. At Oracle database, we are going to write SQL queries or not? Who will execute that SQL queries now? Who will execute that SQL queries? If you think about it, one engine is available to execute that SQL queries. That engine is database engine. In other words, we may call it as a database server. Both are same. database engine and database server. Get my point now? At Java side, JVM. At a database side, database engine. It will execute SQL queries. It will perform the database operations. Clear? Now, coming to our point here. In JDBC, in general, what I am going to do now, I will write SQL query in my Java program. I will send that SQL query from Java program to the database through the connection. At the database engine has to execute that SQL query. First, it has to check the syntax of that SQL query. After that, it has to execute the SQL query. It will perform the database operations. Some results it will identify. It will send the results back to the Java program. At Java program, the results are available. That results we are going to show to the user. That's it. Java program database. We will write SQL queries in Java program as a string. We will send that SQL query as a string to the database engine. Database engine will execute that query. Database engine will perform database operation. It will fetch the data, finding some results, sending back the results to the Java program. This is actual content. Good. Now observe carefully. For example, this is JDBC code. Understand it clearly. st.execute query of select star from emp1. This is SQL query here I have written. Select star from emp1. This is my query. If it is in Java program, no, in the point of JVM, this is totally a string. It is totally what their string. In the point of JVM, it is a string. JVM doesn't aware about the SQL queries. JVM think about it is what there is string. JVM will take that string, it will send that string to the database. At the database engine will take that query, only query, not a string. Query, then it will execute it. Then it will fetch the data. Then that fetched data will be submitted back to the Java program. Now here, the point is what I am telling to you. Do you have any error in this SQL query? Is that SQL query is fine or not? The right SQL query provided or not? Yes, no mistakes in our SQL query. That is right SQL query. Observe carefully. For example, if I provide SQL query like this, select from a star emp1. If I provide like this SQL query, what will happen? In the point of JVM, this is a string only. JVM doesn't check this SQL query syntax. In the point of string only, JVM will take that. JVM will send that string to what their database engine. A database engine has to check the syntax of this SQL query or not. Now it is checking the syntax of the select SQL query. As per the original syntax, select a star from emp1. But what we provided here, no, select from star emp1. Some error is identified or not? Database engine is finding some error in our SQL query. Immediately, database engine will send an error message to the Java program. What is that error now? Error at line 1. Select keyword is missing or invalid a select SQL query. Like this, some error is provided to the Java program which is running. Observe carefully. Java program is running at runtime. Database engine is sending an error. At runtime of the program, error is identified by database engine. Error is submitted by database engine. Runtime error. Runtime at Java program, error is provided by database engine. So this is called as what there? Runtime error. This is called what there? An exception. Especially what is that exception? No, SQL exception we are getting. What is that exception? No, SQL exception. Understand my point clearly now? So because of that reason, what is the point I am telling there? Which may be provided by the database engine while executing SQL queries in what there? JDBC applications. Got it? What I'm telling to you? All of you are getting the second case now, second use case where we are going to get exception here. Leave this point here. Next one is third one. Third one is somewhat related with the distributed applications, client server applications, which may be provided by the network. Which may be provided by the network when we establish connection between local machine and remote machine in the distributed applications. Let's talk about these distributed applications now. Distributed application is nothing but what there? Local machine, remote machine, client machine, server machine. If client wants to send some data to the server, first connection is required or not? Connection is required with the server or not from client now. All right, now client is going to establish connection with the server. To establish connection with the server, what this client is able to do there? Now observe carefully. Connection, or maybe directly here I'm telling to you, URL connection UC is equal to, then what we are able to provide there, new URL dot open connection method is available. Now inside this URL, we have to prepare that URL. What is that URL here now? http:// localhost:. All right, sir. Now, in place of this localhost, I'm going to write what there? 122 dot, all right, sir, 101 dot 78.16.7. All right, sir, :8080 port number. All right, sir. Now slash app1, something else here we provided. This is like what the URL. As per that URL connection we want to establish. As per this URL, we are going to establish what their connection. Now observe carefully. HTTP is a protocol. 122.101.78.67 is what their server IP address. Then 8080 what their server port number. Inside the server, app1 is what their application. To that we want to open the connection. This is actual meaning. Understand my point or not? If we execute this program, connection is going to be established with the server from the respective client application. Okay, fine. Now tell me, this is what now tell me? Server IP address. IP address is containing 4-bit format or not? 4-digit format or not? Right, sir. Digit 1, digit 2, digit 3, digit 4. Each digit must have the range. What is the range of each and every digit? No. Come on, 1 to 255. Am I right or not? 1 to 255. Am I right or not? 255 or 155? 255. Right. This is the range of this one. For example, in the middle, if I provide like what there, 275, for example, if I provide this, is there any chance of existing this IP address in the network? Is there any chance of existing this IP address in the network? No, no chances of existing this IP address in the network or not. All of you understand this point clearly now. So now our network is trying to establish connection with this particular IP address from the local machine, but unfortunately this IP address is not identified. Throughout the network, this IP address is not identified. When this IP address is not identified, automatically network has to raise an error or not? Network has to raise an error or not? Invalid IP address like this, it has to raise an error or not? When it is raising an error while executing Java program, at runtime of the Java program, network is providing an error. Runtime error. Runtime is at what? Java program. Error is provided by what? Their network. At runtime error we are getting. So this is exactly the meaning of what? Their exception. What is that exception there? It may be network exception. What is that exception there? It may be like what? Their network exception. Yes, sir. I forget my point or not? Right, sir. Network exception here we are able to get. Maybe socket binding exception here we are able to get. Or maybe like what there? Some IP address exception here we are able to get. Different names here we are able to get. This is another case here we are able to understand. Because of that reason, what is the point I'm telling there? Which may be provided by the network when we establish connection between local machine and remote machine in the distributed applications. Like this, so many cases and so on 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 and so on. Then what next one here? Causes. What? Causes abnormal termination to the application. Causes what there? Abnormal termination to the applications. Now just I'm going to remove this content here. Causes abnormal termination to the applications. If you're getting clarity, no? Then what is this abnormal termination to the application that we have to understand? In Java, there are two types of terminations. In Java, there are two types of terminations. One is what there? Smooth termination. And the second one is what there? Abnormal termination. Smooth termination, and second one is what there? Abnormal termination. Understand it clearly. So what is the smooth termination first? What is the meaning of the smooth termination? All right, sir. Observe carefully. If the program execution is terminated at the end of the program, then the termination is called smooth termination. If the program execution is terminated at the end of the program, then the termination is called as what there? Smooth termination. It's okay. This is normal. This is required for our applications now. Second one is what there? Abnormal termination. Second one is what there? Abnormal termination. Then what I'm telling to you, if the program execution is terminated, terminated in the middle of the program, then the termination is called as what there? Abnormal termination. Abnormal termination. The best example is a previous class. Unexpectedly, we had some power failure. All of a sudden, we stopped the class. We terminated the class. That is abnormal termination. Understand my point here now? Today, might be if everything is good, I'll complete our class by 9 o'clock. At the end of the session, 9 o'clock, I'm going to terminate this class. It's a smooth termination. All of you understand my point clearly? Right, sir. Good. Now, the point is what there? What's the point here I'm telling to you? Observe carefully. How many types of terminations are available? Two types of terminations. One is what there? Smooth termination. Second one is what there? Abnormal termination. What is that smooth termination? If the program execution is terminated at the end of the program, then the termination is called what there? Smooth termination. What is that abnormal termination? If the program execution is terminated in the middle of the program, then the termination is called what there? Abnormal termination. All of you observe carefully after this. Now the point is what? In Java applications, if you have abnormal terminations, then it will provide the following serious problems. What problems can we are able to get? Observe carefully. In enterprise application, so many programs are available. If one program abnormal termination may crash the local operating system. In our mission, might be that operating system may be crashed out because of abnormal termination of one program. Observe carefully. And it may provide hangout situation to the network if it is network based application. For example, our programs are executed in a networking basis. One program abnormal termination is going on in the network, it may stop the total networking. It may down the total network. It may hang the network. When network is hanged, automatically other services are also be not executed. So hanged out situation to the network if it is a network based application. Hangout situation. Next one is collapse the database if it is database related application. If it is database related application, abnormal termination of one program may collapse your total database. How many tables are available in our schema? How many like views are available? Everything is going to be disturbed. Everything is going to be removed. It may collapse the entire database. Maybe. Next one is after that, after completion of this, down the server if it is a server side application. If you're dealing with server side application, if you have any one program abnormal termination, it may down the server. Once it is down the server, the remaining part of the application is not going to be executed, and so on and so on. So many serious problems here we are able to catch. All of you get my point or not? What I'm telling to you, in Java applications, if you have abnormal terminations to the applications, abnormal terminations to the applications, then it will provide the following serious problems: crash the local operating system, hang out situation to the network if it is network based application, collapse the database if it is database related application, down the server if it is server side application. These many serious problems can we are able to get. Sir, all of you get my point or not? Next one, all of you observe carefully. To avoid the above problems, what we have to do? To avoid the above problems, what we have to do? We have to handle the exceptions properly. We have sorry. We have to handle the exceptions properly. If we handle the exceptions properly, automatically we are able to avoid these serious problems. Understand it now? Observe carefully. To avoid the above problems, we have to avoid the abnormal terminations. If you want to avoid the abnormal terminations, then we have to handle the exceptions clearly. Right, sir. To avoid the above problems, we have to handle the exceptions properly. Right. In how many ways we are able to handle the exceptions? In how many ways we are able to handle the exceptions? That's a point. There are two ways to handle the exceptions. And once again, I'm telling to you, all of you observe carefully. Just this is only overview of the exception handling. My requirement is what there, throws keyword, try catch finally, that I have to talk. Apart from that, I'm not having any intention to talk about the total exception handling. How much I required for advanced Java, for JDBs, up to the tool I'm talking there. More than that, if you're expecting no, I'll discuss about this content in exception handling in the regular core Java classes now. But time being understand it, how much I required from exception handling up to the only here, I'm going to discuss with you clearly. Try to follow this point. Now tell me, in how many ways we are able to handle the exceptions? No, in two ways. What are the two ways here? First one is what there, by using throws keyword, and the second one is what there, by using try catch finally. That's all. By using throws keyword, and the second one is what there, by using try catch finally. They are the two ways of generating what there, handling what there exceptions. Understand it clearly. Right, sir. Now we are going to understand throws keyword. Both here we are going to understand. Put more concentration. Throws keyword. So what is the purpose of this throws keyword? What is the need of this throws keyword? Yes. Can I take 2 minutes of time? I'll come back. Right, sir. Now, come for it now. Then what is the next one here now? Throws keyword. So what is the purpose of this throws keyword? Throws is a Java keyword. Throws is a Java keyword. First of all, let me provide the statement. Throws is a Java keyword. It will bypass the generated exception from present method to the caller method. Come again. What is the point here I'm telling to you? Throws is a Java keyword. It will bypass the generated exception present from the present method to the caller method in order to handle. I'll show in the program here. Try to understand it clearly. All of you put more concentration now. Example, I'm telling to you. Observe carefully. Right, sir. Now here itself in the same content here I'm going to provide. Understand it. And people are asking to me how to create a new Java file in like what there IntelliJ IDEA. Nothing, sir. As a matter of clicking SRC, right click on SRC, new and a package. If we select it, no, we can write the package statement. Or else I don't want to take package, no problem. Under SRC, right click on it and new and a Java class. There we can take the class name, anything now. Say for example, hello is a class name. If we take click on enter button, automatically hello will come. There we can write our content, whatever the content here we want to write. People are asking this question to me now, right? It's a matter of right click on SRC and either package we can create or maybe direct class now. If we take package no, inside the package we can create the class. That depends on your requirement. Now let me delete it now. Right. Now let's move on to the point here. All of you have to carefully. Now, class A I have taken. Put more concentration, all of you know. Class A. Inside this class A, what I'm taking now, void add method here I have taken. Inside this add method, concat method here we have taken. Void concat. Okay. Now inside this concat, I'm getting some exception. I want to throw some exception. To raise an exception intentionally, there we are going to use throw keyword, not throws. Throw keyword is different. Throws keyword is different. Throw keyword is to raise an exception, to create an exception. Throws keyword is to handle that exception. Understand it clearly. Throw keyword I want to use throw new IO exception. For example, there I'm providing like what there my own IO exception. Some description here I provided here. Throw keyword here we are getting. Understand it clearly. Okay, all of you are getting clarity on this. Now I'm going to compile this program. Try to observe carefully. To compile this program, what we required here. Yeah, it's okay, fine, no problem. We can take the terminal. In IntelliJ IDEA, we can take the terminal ABB01, but we are under what location here? No, SRC location. CD space SRC, open it. Now we are under what there? SRC location. It's okay, fine. Now I want to compile the program. When I compile the program, definitely there we are able to get an exception. Okay, fine. And before that, I'm going to talk one more point here. Observe carefully. Concat method. Inside the concat method, we have an exception that we am trying to raise. Okay, where we are calling concat method inside the add method. Now this add method I want to call from main method. To call this add from main method, what we have to take now? A small a is equal to new a object we can create a dot add method that we can call. Okay, now this is a code here. Now all of you observe carefully. Java C space what is the file name actually? Main.java. If I provide this, I'm getting an exception. Observe carefully. Unreported exception, IO exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. At which line we are getting exception now? Tell me. Eighth line. At which line we are getting exception now? Eighth line. What is that eighth line actually? Observe carefully. Eighth line is what there? Exactly this line is what there? Eighth line. Am I right or not? Here we are getting an exception. Okay. But here my requirement is what there? I don't want to handle that exception here inside this. I don't want to handle that exception inside my concat method. I want to handle this exception in the caller of the concat method. I want to handle it in the caller of the concat method. So I want to bypass the exception. I want to forward that exception. I want to send that exception from present method to the caller method. I want to send that exception from concat method to the caller of the concat method. Now tell me, who is the caller of the concat method? Who calls this concat method? Add method. At which line? No, at a fifth line. Am I right or not? So my intention is what there? Exception is generated at eighth line, but I want to bypass that exception to what line here? No, fifth line here. No. So to send that exception from present method to the caller method, there we are using like what there? Throws keyword here we have to use. Along with throws keyword we have to use either same as the generate exception or super of the generate exception. What is the same as the generate exception? IO exception here we can understand. There we have to provide like what there? IO exception. I'll forget my point or not? Now observe carefully. When I compile this program, compiler can identify the exception here at eighth line. Then because of this throws keyword, because of throws IO exception, the generate exception will be bypassed to at what line here? No, fifth line. Now we are going to get an error at what line here? No, fifth line here. Now we are able to get an error at what line here? Fifth line. Now let me check for it. Now here. Now again, now I want to compile this program. Java C space what next one here we are able to provide the main dot Java. All of you observe carefully. I'm going to compile this program. Compiler can identify the exception at what line here? Eighth line. But by seeing this throws keyword, it will be bypassed to what line here? No, fifth line. Method call, concat method call here. Now let me compile this. Let me click on enter button. If we click on enter button, there what we are getting there? All right, sir. Unreported exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. At what line here we are getting this exception? No, at fifth line here we are getting an exception. That means exception is bypassed from eighth line to fifth line or not? That is because of only what keyword? Because of only what keyword? Throws keyword here. Because of only throws keyword, that exception is bypassed from that eighth line to fifth line here. Understand it clearly. That's okay. That's okay. Okay, fine. Observe carefully. But still my requirement is what there? Now tell me. Now exception is available at which line? Now exception is available at which line? Fifth line. That is inside the add method. Actually, I need to handle it inside the add method. I have to handle it inside the add method. But still my requirement is what? I don't want to handle there itself. There also I don't want to handle it. I want to handle that. I want to handle that inside the main method. So I need to bypass that exception from add method to caller of the add method. Who is the caller of the add method? Come on, where we call this add method? Inside the main method we are calling this add method or not? At what line we are calling this add method? At what line we are calling this add method? At 14th line we are calling this add method. Am I right or not? At 14th line we are calling this add method. So whatever the exception which is generated inside the add method, from that point, that exception I want to be bypassed to the caller of the add method. Who is the caller of the add method? Main method. Inside this main method, at what line we are calling this method? At 14th line. So I want to bypass the exception from 5th line to 14th line. That's my requirement. Now if you want to do that, what we have to do there? In the add method prototype, we have to use what there? Throws. We need to write one exception. Now tell me, all of you now tell me, what exception is available at concat method call? What exception is throws here? IO exception. Along with throws keyword now, either we can specify the same IO exception or super of the IO exception. For all the exceptions, exception is a super. For all the exceptions, what is the super? No, exception. Now here we can specify what is that exception. Now here, all of you understand it clearly. If I compile this code, at which line I'm able to get that exception? No. At what line here we are able to get exception? No. At 14th line here we are able to get that exception. That means when I compile this code, first exception is identified at what line? 8th line. Because of throws keyword, that exception will bypass to what line here? 5th line. That is inside the add method. There also because of throws keyword, that exception is bypassed to what method here? Main method. Inside this main method, at 14th line we are going to get what there? An exception. Now let me check this one now. I think all of you are following my points clearly. Java C space main dot Java. Now tell me, exception is identified at what time here? No, at which line here we are getting that exception here? 14th line. Right, sir. It's okay, fine. Leave this one. Still, inside this main method also, I don't want to handle it. I want to bypass that exception to the caller of the main method. I want to bypass that exception to the caller of the main method. Who is the caller of this main method? Come on, who is the caller of the main method? JVM. JVM is the caller of the main method. To the JVM, I want to bypass my exception. To the JVM, I want to bypass my exception. So if you want to bypass that exception, the caller of the main method, in the main method syntax, we have to use what their throws. Along with throws, either we have to use what their exception, or we have to use what their super of the exception. IO exception super is what their exception. Exception is also be one super. Exception class is also be having one super. That super is what their throwable. Throwable is what their super of the exception. That one also here we are able to use. Now check this one. When I compile this code, first compiler will identify exception at what line here? 8th line. Because of throws keyword, it will bypass that exception to what line? 5th line. Again, because of throws keyword, that exception will come to at what line? 14th line. Because of throws keyword, that exception will be submitted to what? JVM. Now JVM will take the responsibility of handling that. Okay, now see, and when we compile this code, no compilation error is going to be identified. Java C space main.java. Are you getting any compilation error? Are you getting any compilation error? No compilation error. But when we execute this program, JVM is having default exception handler internally. JVM has what their default exception handler internally. It will find that exception. It able to display that exception details at all three lines. At all three locations, it is able to provide what their exception details. At what are the three locations? Can now tell me. First one is what their 8th line. Next one is what their 5th line. Then what next one can know? 14th line. With all these exception details now, the JVM is going to trace that exception. It is able to display the tracing details now. Now let me click on enter button here now. Now see this what output here we are getting there. Now observe carefully. Exception threat mean java.io.io exception. My one exception at 8th line, at 5th line, at 14th line. All the exception details here we are getting. Are you get my point or not? So now this is exactly the meaning of like what there throws keyword. I think you understood the point clearly. What exactly the point I'm telling to you about this throws keyword. Now tell me, all of you now tell me. What is the purpose of this throws keyword, sir? Now tell me, all of you know. Come on, guys. What is the purpose of this throws keyword? What you understood there? It is able to bypass the generated exception from present method to the caller method. To bypass the exception from present method to the caller method, we are going to use what there? Throws keyword. This is the simple point here. What I am telling you now. All of you are getting clarity on this point now. All right. Understand it. How I'm going to use this in my JDBC applications. In JDBC applications, I'm going to use so many predefined methods. In JDBC applications, I'm going to use so many predefined methods inside the main method. That so many predefined methods are throwing SQL exception. That predefined methods are throwing what their SQL exception. So I want to handle it by JVM. I want to handle them to what their JVM. I want to hand over that exceptions to JVM. JVM will handle it. So inside my main method, what I'm going to use now, throws exception I'm going to write. Inside my main method, I'm going to write what there throws exception. That's it. That's as simple as. If you don't want to handle it inside the main method, send it to JVM. JVM will handle it. All right. This is exactly the point about like what the throws keyword. All of you are getting clarity. I required only 2 points. One is what there bypassing the exception from present method to the caller method by using throws keyword. Second point is what there in JDBC we are going to use number of predefined methods. These methods are throwing some exceptions. To handle them, to bypass them to the JVM, we will use throws keyword in the main method syntax. Clear? Can I go for the next point here? No. All right, sir. What is that next one? No. Try catch finally. This is important. Try catch finally. Try catch finally. All of you observe carefully. Now, what is the purpose of this try catch finally? What is the need of this try catch finally? Observe carefully. In Java applications, throws keyword is not really an exception handler. Throws keyword is not really an exception handler. Why? Because it is able to bypass the exception from current method to the caller method. That is okay. Then here itself we can understand it is able to bypass the exception from current method to the caller method in order to handle the exception. In order to handle the exception means that it is skipping from the responsibility. It is not handling the exception. Simply it is a hand over that exception handling responsibility to some other. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? Instead of handling that exception, it hand overs that exception handling to what there some other. Answer my point here now. All right, sir. Why? Because it is able to bypass the exception from current method to the caller method in order to handle exception. That is, it is able to hand over the exception handling responsibility to some other method, to some other. Understand it clearly now. But if you want to handle the exceptions really at the location where exceptions are generated, come on guys. But if you want to handle the exceptions really at the location where exceptions are generated, then we have to use try catch finally. There we have to use what there? Try catch finally. All of you get my point or not? So you understand the point clearly. People are thinking about it. Program is not terminating abnormally, right? Abnormal termination in the sense this kind of flow of execution is not going to happen. Abnormal termination in the sense here itself the program is terminated in the throws keyword. But here that exception is coming to this location, that exception is coming to what location? This location. Then only program is terminating. All of you get my point or not? But abnormal termination in the sense here itself the program has to be struck. But it was not happened here. Not like this. It's one type of handling. Okay, leave this one. Now coming to the punch here. Now, what we understood from this particular point, now tell me, throws keyword behavior is what? Not really handling that exception. Simply it is bypassing exception to what there? Some other. Simply it is bypassing exception to what there? Some other. That some other has to handle it. That is, it is skipping from the exception handling responsibility. But if you want to handle the exceptions where it was generated, if you want to handle the exceptions where that exceptions are generated, there we have to use what there? Try catch finally. There we have to use what there? Try catch finally. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? Okay, fine. Then what is the syntax of this try catch finally? If you understand the syntax of this try catch finally, put more concentration. Try a set of instructions here we are going to provide. After that, catch exception name, a reference variable of that exception. Now inside this here we are able to have what there? A set of lines. Then after that, finally block. Inside this we are going to have what there? A set of instructions. That's it. Now tell me, this is the syntax of this try catch finally. Now our requirement is what there? We have to understand what is try and what is catch and what is finally. These points here we have to understand. Now let us understand what is try actually. Try block. Observe carefully. In a try catch finally also try block is a real exception handler. In a try catch finally, which block is handling that exceptions? No, try block is handling that exceptions. What is the meaning of it? Try block. What is the purpose of the try block? All of you observe carefully. For example, I have written a program. In my program, 100 lines of code is available. In my program, 100 lines of code is available. Out of these 100 lines of code, I'm doubtful of getting an exception. Please remember it. Carefully observe my statements. I'm doubtful of getting an exception in the lines from 50th line to 60th line out of 100 lines of code. I'm doubtful. Still, I'm not confirming it. I'm doubtful. Being a developer, I'm doubtful about to get an exception from which line to which line, 50th line to 60th line. That is my doubt only, not yet confirmed. That doubtful code we have to keep inside the try block. No need to keep the total code inside the try block. Or 100 lines of code is not required to keep inside the try block. Only the doubtful code. Which code may generate an exception? That code only we have to keep inside the try block. Is it? All of you get my point or not? What lines of code we are going to keep inside the try block? No, doubtful code, which may raise an exception. One more point I'm telling there. After keeping some lines of code inside the try block, then there is no guarantee of getting an exception from try block. That lines of code may generate, may not generate an exception. In a try block, exception is not guaranteed one. Exceptions may be generated, may not be generated inside the try block. Everybody put more concentration. What I'm telling you now. No mandatory condition to generate an exception inside the try block. Inside the try block, you may get an exception, you may not get an exception. But doubtful code we are going to keep. Sir, how to identify the doubtful code? How I can find the doubtful code? Who has written that program? You have written that program. That you should know. Which lines of code is able to raise an exception? Which lines of code is not going to raise an exception? The doubt we have to get. The doubtfulness we have to get. That code only we have to keep. That depends on your talent. That depends on the developer's stuff. Understand it clearly. Automatically we are going to understand when we write a program, automatically we are going to understand in this particular lines of code we are able to get an exception. Maybe chances are available. That code we have to keep inside what their try block. Right, sir. Okay, fine. I provided some doubtful code. Now let me write that information here. No, try block try block is able to include a doubtful code is able to include doubtful code which may raise an exception. Doubtful code which may raise an exception. Try block is able to include a doubtful code which may raise an exception. Right, so now inside the try block, there is no guarantee to generate an exception. There is no guarantee to get an exception. There is no guarantee to generate an exception from the doubtful code, which may or may not raise the exception. That's it. I think so. You understood my point clearly, or I try to observe carefully. Inside the try block, there is no guarantee to generate an exception from the doubtful code. Which may or may not raise the exception. Okay, for example, listen carefully. If I have an exception in try block, what will happen? If no exception is available in try block, then what will happen? I will show diagrammatically also, but points wise we can understand. In a try block, if I have an exception, what will happen there? Immediately, flow of execution will come to catch block. Catch block will be executed. Finally block is also be executed. When we have an exception, immediately, right away, on that moment, flow of execution will come to what block? No, catch block, even by skipping the remaining statements inside the try block. For example, inside the try block, 10 lines of code is available. At 5th line, I got an exception. 6th line to 10th line is not executed. Directly from 5th line onwards, flow of execution will come to what block here? No, catch block. I'll show you the diagram. No need to worry for it. If you have an exception, right away catch block will be executed, then final block is going to be executed. Observe carefully. Right, sir. Now the point is what there. If we have an exception in try block, then JVM will bypass flow of execution to the catch block by skipping all the remaining instructions inside the try block. Right, sir. Now observe carefully. If you have an exception inside in the try block, then JVM will bypass flow of execution to the catch block by skipping all the remaining instructions inside the try block. Okay. If you have no exception, or if no exception is identified, if no exception is identified inside the try block, if no exception is identified inside the try block, at the end of the try block, JVM will bypass flow of execution to the finally block directly by skipping catch block. Come again, what's the point I'm telling there? If no exception is identified inside the try block, at the end of the try block, JVM will bypass flow of execution to the final block directly by skipping the catch block execution. Right, sir? Here itself I'm telling there. If no exception is available inside the try block, the total try block will be executed. At the end of the try block, directly flow of execution will come to what block? No, finally block. That's it. This is entirely the information about their try and the try block, the total information of try block. Now let's see in the form of this diagrammatic, diagrammatic representation here. All of you observe carefully. I'll show this total content here for our clarity purpose. Understand it, no? All of you put more concentration here. Say for example, lines of code here we have written. Inside the try block, catch exception E, for example, then after that finally block, after that another set of intersections here we are going to take. All right, so now all of you observe carefully. Yeah. First of all, let us see that no exception in our try block. First of all, before try block, JVM will execute all instructions. If we have any instruction before the try block, it will be executed. Inside the try block, every instruction will be executed if we are not having any exception. At the end of the try block, no exception is identified. Flow of execution will come to directly what block? No, finally block. Directly flow of execution will come to what block? No, finally block. Finally block will be executed. After executing that finally block, after the finally block also if you have any instruction, they are going to be executed. All of you are getting clarity on this flow. What is the case number 1 I have taken here? If no exception is identified inside the try block, then this is a flow of execution. Total try block will be executed. After that, no need to execute catch block. Catch block will be skipped. Flow of execution will come to what block? No, finally block. Total finally block will be executed. After completion of the total finally block, what is going to be executed here? No, directly. Then after the finally, that code is going to be executed. For example, Case number 2 here I'm telling you, observe carefully. For example, here we have an exception. Inside the try block, we have an exception. Inside the try block, what we are having there, we have an exception. How that exception is going to be happen there, now observe carefully. First of all, JVM will execute this before try block. Everything it will execute before the try block. Then it will come inside the try block. When it come to inside the try block, where it found what there, an exception it is identifying. When it identifying an exception now, observe carefully, internally exception object will be created. Getting an exception is nothing but creating an exception object. Observe carefully. Directly from this particular point onwards, flow of execution will come to what block? Catch block. Without executing remaining part inside the try block, catch block. Right, sir. Now observe carefully. At the time of bypassing that flow of execution, the catch block, whatever the exception object which is generated, that exception object reference value is also be passed as parameter to catch block. This exception object reference value is also passed as parameter to catch block. Flow of execution is coming to catch block. Immediately, the total catch block is going to be executed. Not only that catch block, then total finally block is also executed. After this finally block, remaining part of the finally block is also be executed. Please check all of you know. All of you put more concentration what I am telling to you. In the case of no exception, what block is not executed by JVM? Catch block. In the case of an exception inside the try block, what part is not executed by JVM? Can know? Come on, what block is not executed by JVM? Now tell me. Inside the try block, after the exception, a set of instructions are available. They are not executed by JVM. Which part is a skipping part? We have to understand it now. Yes, sir. All of you are getting clarity on this point or not? So this is exactly the meaning of like what there try functionality here we understood. Right, sir. Now the try functionality here we understood. Then inside the try catch finally, what is the next one? No. What is the next one again? No. Catch block. Observe carefully. Catch block is the next one. Right, sir. It's not at all difficult, sir. Easily we can understand it now. Each and every point is very simple. All right, sir. Catch block. What is the purpose of the catch block? The name itself is giving clarity. Catch the exception from try block. Get an exception from what there? Try block. The main purpose of the catch block is to catch the exception from try block and display, or else maybe instead of saying that display, and provide the exception details to the exception details on the console. Right, sir. All of you please read out the statement. What is the purpose of this catch block now? The main purpose of the catch block is to catch the exception from the try block and to display and to provide exception details on what their console. Console is nothing but what there? Our command prompt, from where we are going to execute our program. That's the main purpose of like what block here? Catch block. Understand it clearly. Okay, it is able to catch the exception from try block. It is going to be happen automatically. In a try block, if any exception is available, flow of execution will come to catch block, where generated exception reference is also be generated. Okay, fine. But how we are going to display that exception details to the console actually? Inside the catch block, what exactly the exception details here we are going to provide there? Now I'll give the information to you, try to understand it now. There are three ways to display or to provide. There are three ways to provide exception details on the console. There are three ways to provide exception details on the console. What are the three ways to provide exception details on the console there? Right, sir. Now observe carefully. The first one is like what there? By using print stack trace method. Second one is what there? By using system.out.println method. println of exception, a reference variable. Third one is what there, by using get message method. In these three ways, we are able to provide what there, exception details. But before going to understand these three details, no, first of all, we have to understand every exception message is divided into three parts. For example, if I get an exception, understand my point, no? Right, sir. It's okay, fine. All of you observe carefully. For example, just I want to remove this. Float f is equal to 100 divided by 0. In Java, a number is divided by 0 in the sense. In Java, a number is divided by 0 in the sense like what there? Arithmetic exception we are able to get. What exception? No? Arithmetic exception. I'm going to show that exception details. Observe carefully. I'm not handling this exception, guys. Observe carefully. I'm not handling this exception. All right, sir. Now let me execute this program here. If I execute this, there we are getting some exception. I'm going to get copy of this. Now observe carefully. Now, this is an exception message, no? This total exception message is divided into three parts. This is exception name, name of the exception, java.lang. Arithmetic exception. This is a description of the exception. This is what? Description of the exception. This is the location of the exception. What it is, no? Location of the exception. The total exception message is divided into three parts. One is what there? Name of the exception, description of the exception, and what is that one here? No? Location of the exception. All right. Now all of you observe carefully. If we use print stack trace method, it will provide all the exception details, like exception name, comma, exception description, and exception location. All these details here we are able to get. But if you use this, what is this? No, system outed println of exception, where internally two string method will be executed. Then it will provide it will provide the exception details like exception name and description of the exception. Exception name and description of the exception. Next one is third one. It will provide only exception description. Is it? All of you get my point or not? Now tell me. Print stack trace method will provide what details? No, exception name, exception description, and exception location. All right, sir. Now system outed println of exception. What it will provide there? Exception name and a description of the exception. Get message method is able to provide only what there? Exception description. It's able to provide only exception description. Sir, got or not? All right, so the related program I'm going to show and tomorrow. Tomorrow I will show that programmatic part for this. For that, you'll understand like finally block, try catch finally. Few points I'm going to discuss. If I'm completed that, then I will go with what there. How we are going to use try catch finally when we use resources. After the try catch finally, try with resources option I will discuss with you. After completion of this, then we will go with what there inside the IO sims. No, sorry, inside this like the total exception and related content is going to be completed. Then we'll start with what there IO sims related part here. That we are going to understand. Okay, right, sir. That's all for today. We'll see the remaining part in tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, Ashish, that is not the exception. No, then when we compile the program, compiler will identify the situation where that exception is going to be generated at runtime. Understand it now? At compilation time, just I shown that compiler will predict if I execute this code in this location, exception will come. That's the reason why we are getting like what? That's the reason why we are getting like what there unreported exception. That message we are getting. Please recognize it. Unreported exception means that exception is not occurred. Just maybe that exception will be generated in this particular location if we execute the program. That message here we are able to catch. That's the point here I'm telling to you now. Okay, right, sir. Which one is suggestible? Always try catch finally. Okay. And the difference between error and exception. Better I will discuss about this content in exception handling instead of here. Why? Because you may not get complete content here about this. I'll discuss about it maybe problem maybe maximum in exception handling. Still, what we are do there? Still, if you want to check for it, no error and exception in the sense as of now, just for your understanding purpose, I'm telling there. Error in general at compile time and exception is at what time here? No runtime. That's it. The simple difference we can identify. At compile time, if you are getting any problem, that is an error. At runtime, if you are getting any error, there is an exception there. Simple, as simple as. Yeah, we shall write exactly. MacBook you can use. MySQL we are going to use maximum. That I will show that Oracle content on Windows operating system. Yeah, you can use MacBook better. Then even myself also I'm suggesting to you better to use MacBook. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. Thanks a lot. I'll meet you tomorrow. Good night. Good night. Okay.